The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com.
We've been talking about the increasingly dire water situation in California, and now California Governor Jerry Brown has ordered cities and towns to cut water consumption by 25%. You might remember that a little over a year ago, Governor Brown asked for a voluntary 20% cut. Basically, none of the state was able to do that or chose not to, I guess. And yesterday, the day before, water officials measured the lowest snowpack in more than 60 years of record keeping. And Brown announced an executive order with a bunch of elements. One issue that I'm going to tell you what the restrictions are. One issue is that 75% of California water use is for agriculture, and most of these regulations apply to urban life, which is only a small portion of all California water use. So here's what the restrictions are. Cities have to stop watering those median strips of grass that run down the middle of roads. Okay. 50 million square feet of grass will be removed and replaced with drought-tolerant landscaping. A temporary rebate program is going to be created to encourage homeowners to replace their appliances with ones that use less water. Golf courses, college campuses, and cemeteries need to cut their water use. And new developments are going to have to install either drip or micro spray systems for irrigation if they use drinking water for irrigation. And then they're also going to increase water rates and fees to try to discourage water use. This is all reasonable stuff. And we're completely on board, Lewis, with the water crisis that is going on in California and the need to address this. But agricultural water use is 75% of California water use, and it's barely addressed.
Can they touch that? I mean, you're talking about a ton of farmland, a ton of the GDP of California. I don't know. I mean, food that California residents have to eat. Maybe that's just off limits.
Well, it's not. I think you're getting at it. It's not just food for California residents. California grows food for the entire country, and we've talked about for a long time. Why should we care in the Northeast or in Texas that California is having water problems? Because so much of our food comes from there. So this has the potential to disrupt the food supply across the country. I totally understand that it would have a huge impact to curb water usage for agricultural purposes. And a lot of people are upset about even the restrictions that are being placed. But for the most part, it seems that the population there recognizes how serious of an issue this is.
I think so. And I have to agree with the way they're doing this now. I mean, agriculture comes last. I mean, first, let's make sure that water isn't being wasted.
Members of the Madison, Wisconsin City Council have voted unanimously to make discriminating against atheism and others who don't believe in God illegal. This is the first municipality to do this. Quote from District 18 Alderwoman Anita Weyer. She said, "This is important because I believe it is only fair that if we protect religion in all its varieties, we should also protect non-religion from discrimination. It's only fair." The vote amends. So the city has already an equal opportunity ordinance, and it protects other classes. And this amendment now just adds atheism and the non-religious to that. Weyer said there are many categories that are protected, and it did occur to me that if religion was there, perhaps the opposite should be as well. Remember that poll about religious people trusting atheists to about the same extent that they trust rapists? I think it's pretty clear that if we're going to go so far in protecting any and all religions and anything that falls under sincerely held religious beliefs, we also need to consider that the non-religious need to be protected.
I think so. I think you're going to have many opponents of this. You're going to have people saying, well, doesn't this prove that atheism is a religion? Atheism is a religion if they're being, or somewhat like a religion if they are being protected as if it was. But of course, this is the right move.
Yeah, and if you look at the list of what else are protected classes, right? Sex, race, religion, color, national origin or ancestry, citizenship status, age, handicap or disability, marital status, source of income. It seems ridiculous to say all of those are okay, but non-religious atheism isn't okay. And by the way, this proves that atheism is a religion. I can hear people making, I can imagine people making that argument, but it's a pretty intellectually void argument to make.
I think if this, let's just say this happens at the federal level,
Yeah.
I think in many areas of the country, it could help remove some of the stigma around atheism. So, yeah, this is important.
There's some Christians in Wisconsin who are calling this persecution of their beliefs. It's amazing that a group that is protected by federal, state, and local ordinances makes up the majority of the country, is the only religion to have a federal holiday, Christmas, thinks that just saying, hey, in addition to all these other classes of people, the non-religious are protected as well. They think that that's somehow persecuting their Christian beliefs. That's how far we've come with this faux war on Christmas that they believe is being waged against them.
Yeah, well, as more things like this happen, it's clear that that they are on kind of the decline, and that logic and reason seem to be winning the battle overall.
We did a story a little while ago on, it might have been the regular show, might have been the bonus show, I don't remember now, telling you that lots of supplements that are sold by fitness and nutrition stores and online have been tested, and that a lot of them don't even contain any of the supposed supplements that they say on the bottle. We now have even more data along these lines. Not totally surprising, but it's good to know this data. Fast food is just as effective as supplements at helping people recover from a workout. So it's a big thing in the fitness world that after you work out, you have your protein powder shakes and your various supplements, whatever to help you recover from that workout. Lots of people spend a ton of money on these supplements. And a new study finds that when it comes specifically to exercise recovery, supplements are no better than fast food. The study went this way. They had 11 highly trained male athletes fast for 12 hours. Then they do a 90-minute endurance workout. After that, some of them get a sort of protein powder, a combination of different nutritional supplements, and the other group gets fast food. A while later, they come back and they reverse it. And after each test, they measure the performance, how quickly they recovered, how they were able to perform on a second workout a couple of hours later. And they found that essentially there was no difference in those who had the fast food after the workout and those who had the nutritional supplements after the workout. I'm not surprised by this, Lewis, but we need to be very careful in terms of understanding what this says and what it doesn't say, right? What this does say is that when it comes to post-workout recovery, the carbs and the protein that are in fast food are just as useful, just as effective in helping you recover as the supplements are. This has no connection whatsoever to the long-term health impact of eating fast food after every workout, and we have to really clearly distinguish.
No doubt. This was a one-time test. Now, imagine if you reproduce this test, you did it, I don't know, for 7 days straight. I think even maybe then you might start to see a difference in those who were eating the fast food and those who were just taking the supplements. But, it doesn't necessarily mean that these supplements are the best thing for you either. I think maybe you might be able to do better just by eating the right foods.
Once again, it seems that the best thing is to be eating a balanced diet of unprocessed, mostly unprocessed foods, whether it's before your workout or after your workout, and that's really going to be the best thing. I think you're absolutely spot on there. But think about the business implications of this, because so much money is made on these post-workout recovery supplements and creatine powders and all this stuff.
It's a ton of money. It's a huge industry. And, we're in pretty deep there. I don't think we're going to see many changes in that industry. But I guess it's better than supporting the fast food industry.
Were you ever into supplements and stuff like that? Because you had a phase I think you had a protein phase, right?
Well, I would do protein powder and I left it at that. No pre-workout special stuff, no post-workout special stuff, just protein powder. And I've stopped doing that. And now I just, after a workout, will consume things high in protein.
Give us a list of what some of those are.
I will usually start with a yogurt.
Wow.
Yeah, a plain yogurt, a Greek yogurt, it is very high in protein.
Don't go crazy, Lewis.
I'll add some nuts and seeds. You can get about 18 grams of protein out of that. Or perhaps I will have a can of tuna with some other stuff, also very high in protein.
Just tuna out of a can? That to me would seem incredibly unsavory.
No. I add things, and it's not just plain tuna.
Are you into chia seeds now? Do you put those in your yogurt?
I do. I put chia seeds with nuts and usually some honey in the yogurt.
And is it orange amber honey, or what are you using there?
It varies. Whatever I get at the store that looks good at the time.
All right, fair trade, naturally.
Usually, I do my best.
All right, so we'll talk to Lewis more about this explosive revelation regarding his seed consumption, maybe on the bonus show. I know that people are very interested in hearing all about it. You can tweet us about this, twitter.com/David Pakman Show, and we'll be back after the break. Really fantastic show for you today.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Our program is funded by our audience directly, and today's new member of the day, and I really don't want to butcher his last name. The first name I'm sure of, it's David. The last name, my best guess is that it's Plamondon. David Plamondon, although it could be Plamondon. How would you say this last name, Lewis?
I think your first guess would also be my first guess.
Plamondon.
Yeah, Plamondon seems, at least it doesn't sound offensive if we're getting it wrong.
David Plamondon, thank you for being a David Pakman Show member, and you can join David and get all the great member benefits at davidpakman.com/membership. And remember, any Amazon.com shopping you do could be supporting our show. Just go to our website, davidpakman.com, click on the Amazon banner on the right side of the page, bookmark it, use it whenever you shop. 4 years ago this week, NBC Nightly News did a report about big corporations paying no taxes and said nothing about then parent corporation General Electric paying no taxes. It was, of course, no surprise, but it does seem like all corporate media outlets avoid talking about which big corporations that are connected to them are not paying taxes or are not paying a living wage or whatever, right?
Oh yeah, that's it's an epidemic. It's a huge part of the problem that people just aren't aware of how bad things really are.
From 2008 to 2013, GE made about $40 million in U.S. profit.
That's billion.
Billion dollars in U.S. profit, and their tax rate over this period was negative 9%. How could that be? They received tax refunds and tax credits and tax incentives to the tune of $2.9 billion. And then other companies, Boeing, Verizon, they usually have negative tax rates as well. And not helping the tax situation is that a lot of these corporations are able to store huge amounts of money in offshore tax havens. And in addition, they're able to designate certain income as foreign income, even though it was really kind of earned domestically. In 2012, General Electric stashed $108 billion offshore. If corporate media started being more responsible about reporting this, do you think it would make a difference? Would people be outraged to a greater extent than they are already?
It's hard to say. I would like to think there would be outrage. At the same time, the politicians are in bed with these companies, of course. There's a lot of campaign contributions coming in. So it's hard to say if anything would change.
The thing is, there's some people who know about this and aren't outraged because they think that this is how you create jobs. You give big corporations negative tax rates and give the executives low tax income tax rates, et cetera, et cetera. We know that supply side economics like that doesn't work. But I think even a lot of the people who would be informed about this, who don't already know, would just be kind of voodoo economic supporters and think this is all great.
Probably. You have to ask yourself if some of these jobs would outweigh the hundreds of billions of dollars, if not trillions, that we have lost because of these loopholes over the years.
Also, 4 years ago this week, multiple newscasters started speaking gibberish during their broadcasts. I would love to play a little bit of it for you, but unfortunately, these videos are all from local news stations, and local news stations are so aggressive with copyright claims. Even though I think we'd be within our fair use rights to use these clips, I'm going to let you go and find them for yourselves. Some people were saying, is the US government using some kind of microwave mind control tests that cause these spells? Others were saying, hey, maybe this is a stroke. Maybe this is something drug induced. The clips that we talked about at the time, some of the anchors claimed that they were having a migraine issue and that they started going into this gibberish talk. I've never seen this happen in person, at least not with anyone who was not experiencing a medical incident.
Right. It does seem that that some type of severe migraine thing can make this happen, and I guess it's more common in women than in men. But it was just weird that so many anchors at the same time happened to suffer from this. I mean, luckily, in I think the majority of these cases, it was just this migraine-related issue, but I've also never heard anyone do anything like this.
And the other thing is, I'm not getting all conspiratorial, but it's weird that there was like a rash of these within a short period of time, and we really haven't heard of it since, unless they're still happening and they're just no longer making national news.
It could be, yeah. Sometimes, sometimes people are just paying attention at the right time, and things like that can happen.
1 year ago this week, Neil deGrasse Tyson, astrophysicist and host of Cosmos on Fox, trolled creationists on Cosmos. He's been trolling Bible thumpers for a long time. This past Christmas, he sent a tweet which went viral, which was, on this day long ago, a child was born, who by age 30 would transform the world. Happy birthday, Isaac Newton, December 25th, 1642. I think that the Cosmos series is informative, it's entertaining, but it's also been really great because of the just vitriol that it causes from those who base their beliefs solely on the Bible. And Neil deGrasse Tyson has been doing a great job, on purpose or inadvertently, of trolling those people.
Well, I think this show has been an invaluable tool in what I like to call the war on ignorance. But this is what it takes. It takes like a charismatic scientist with celebrity status, a high budget show on a major network in a primetime slot, and then, the backing of wealthy people like Seth MacFarlane, who helped get this off the ground. And without all of these, combined efforts and money, people would not be aware of it. And they just, it's opening a lot of people's minds. It's a very good thing.
If we had a network that was as popular as the cable news channels, 24 hours, with just science-based programming. And I know that there are these channels. There's the Science Channel and there's a National Geographic and different ones, but they're not really as popular, right? A good ratings day for those is very different than for some of the major channels. Wouldn't we be in a drastically different situation in this country today?
I think we probably would. What if science and or technology were just our focus, as a whole, the entire country? It just, if that were the case, we would be so far ahead right now.
And hey, what if we did not use religion, but only used science and reason to decide what laws we should pass? No discussions of whether we should be anti-gay legislatively because of someone's religion. No discussions of whether we should rewrite history in public schools because of someone's religion. That would be a really good thing. We would be way ahead of where we are now. We have a fantastic program for you today. Great interview coming up next. We'll answer your questions later on. Glad you're with us on this Friday.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
This week's classic interview takes us back to October of 2012, where we were joined by a man who goes by the name of Mr. Money Mustache. He's a very popular personal finance blogger. And I want to go back to this discussion because, number one, he has a lot of interesting things to say. Since this interview in October of 2012, his blog, Mr. Money Mustache, has grown drastically. I'm still a follower of that blog. I think a lot of the things he talks about with regard to personal finance are so important. But as we start having more and more of these discussions around employment, around the stock market, given the huge run-up that we've seen under President Obama, around savings and Americans making decisions around their personal finances. Let's just go back to this interview, which was actually quite controversial when we had it. A lot of people emailed me saying what Mr. Money Mustache is saying does not make any sense. It's unrealistic and it's just ridiculous. And since then, a lot of those people have been proven wrong. And some have even emailed me and said, I actually now am a big fan of Mr. Money Mustache. Very important interview about wasting money, personal finance decisions. Let's check it out from October of 2012. Joining me today is Mr. Money Mustache, also known as Pete. He is the blogger at mrmoneymustache.com. Pete, I came across your blog, I don't even know how, to be completely honest, but I got hooked on it and I've been reading it for a while. Do you consider yourself a personal finance blogger, a common sense spending blogger? Like, how do you describe yourself?
Yeah, well, thanks for being a reader. It's an honor to have you among us. I don't even know what kind of blog it is, but I've heard it's called a personal finance blog, just because my main topic is finance and early retirement. But it's kind of branched out to become more of a lifestyle design blog, maybe, where Mr. Money Mustache just tells you how to run your life, basically, and then he branches out and occasionally into telling the world how to run its life.
All right, so the writing style is very entertaining. There's a lot of profanity sometimes that's used, and I'm perfectly fine with that. How did you develop this kind of conversational writing style when you're talking to people about pretty serious stuff, right? Can you retire early, if ever? How can you afford sending your kids to college? I mean, it's pretty serious stuff, but you do it in a way that is accessible. Did this come naturally to you?
Yeah, it's definitely a natural style because when I'm writing to my readers, who I call the Mustachians, I just imagine that I'm sitting there at their kitchen table talking to you. So I use words like I or you or we because we're kind of all in a family. We're all just doing stuff together. And that's something that I've always disliked in serious stuff. Like I went through engineering and the textbooks in that field are the most dry, ridiculous stuff. Like the reader will verify this on their own. And so this is a reaction against that style. I think everything should be direct. The instructions should be easy to follow, and it should just be like a conversation.
Let's get into some of the meat of what's in your blog, right? And you talk a lot about spending. What are some of the ways that people are just literally throwing money out the window? The most common ones that they don't even realize how it's really adding up. And also talk about anytime you talk about weekly or monthly expenses, tell the audience how you think about those small expenditures long term to really kind of contextualize them.
Yeah, okay, well, sort of two questions, I guess. Number one is where is everybody's money going? And it's just flying out of their ears and hair in every direction, and people don't even realize it. I mean, in this country, the U.S., anyone who makes more than $40,000 a year, maybe even 30, should just be rolling money. It should be impossible to have a shortage. And thus, the kind of upper middle class that are making like 100 for a family, they should all be able to retire just in a few years if they just watch where they're going. Now, to get into the specifics, most people just burn tons of money on their cars. You know, they'll like live 30 miles from work and commute in a Chevrolet Tahoe and not even realize how much that's costing them because they're thinking on a weekly basis or a monthly basis. I try to encourage people to think on a 10-year basis minimum. So a weekly expense, you got to multiply that by something like 750 to take into account the fact of if you did not spend that every week and if you invested at even like a moderate rate of return, you're going to end up 750 times a bigger number. So anyway, if you think of everything 10 years, and also once you get old like me, you realize 10 years isn't very long. Like I go through several periods of 10 years since I even became an adult. So this stuff really adds up.
People might not realize it, but you're 85, right?
Yeah, and I just maintain this youthful physique by lifting weights and not sitting in an office all day. So That's one of the secrets to early retirement is you never age.
Yeah, so let's talk about that a little bit, because not about the not aging, but when I read your blog, it really made me rethink some of my spending. I think I'm pretty good as far as I don't go out to eat more than just kind of some basic amount that I say I've allocated this amount of money. I get a certain enjoyment from having a certain number of restaurant meals, so I've allocated this specific amount of money. But then you don't think about, okay, you're at work, it's much easier instead of packing a lunch to actually just walk out and spend $12 on a lunch down the street. Now, if you think about one $10 lunch a week, over 10 years, just throwing that money into an index fund and earning conservatively 7%, you're talking about $7,500 that you could have put away. Is my math somewhat right?
Yeah, that's about right. And that's not even counting the ridiculous stuff like everyone just gets in their SUV and drives to the Applebee's or whatever, and that's like another...
God, I hope not Applebee's.
I don't even know. Chili's? What do the office workers go to these days? It's always something that's not even like an experience. They're just getting these calories, usually a bunch of crappy white bread stuff, and burning off their money mustaches, as we would say on the blog, burning off all kinds of cash, just going out to lunch. And I think the real key word is what you said in the question to me, which is easy. If you're doing something because it's easy, that should be an alarm bell, because in general, you should be looking for the harder path, because quite counterintuitively, the harder path is usually what makes you happier, because you get better at something. Like, so for example, thinking in advance, making your lunch and bring it to work, or at least biking to the restaurant if you're going to go to work. That's harder, and that's better. And then that's a concept I like to call badassity, because if somebody's badass, that means they've got the power to do stuff for themselves. They don't just take the easy path. And turns out the hard path usually makes you richer, and it also makes you happier.
So let's talk specifically, when you said anybody making over $40,000 a year really should be saving just a ton of money. Now, a lot of people will hear that and they'll say, listen, I don't think I have too expensive of a car. I didn't have the cash to buy it up front. I got a $6,000 car and I'm making payments on it, and I've got $250 a month in student loans, and then I've got a kid I'm paying for, and blah, 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 blah. The $40,000 a year, which after taxes it's much less than that, I really just am not finding anything left after. What do you say to people who have that point of view?
Yeah, well, it's easy. I could definitely see how things start to seem tricky when you're dug into a hole already. Like if you got a car payment, which you shouldn't have, then life's going to feel harder. If you've got a kid, and you're really young, then that's another step down. But you're in a hole right now, but you can dig yourself back out of it. Like, you don't have to have children super, super young. You can...
Well, but let's say you do.
Yeah, well...
Like my producer said, for example, my producer isn't planning on having children, but he said, if I accidentally had a kid right now, I would probably love the kid. Therefore, he would provide for it financially. Maybe not the ideal thing, but let's say you have the kid.
Yeah, okay. Well, there's usually some hidden stuff when these people send in case studies. Like, life sounds hard on the surface, but then you find out that they live 30 miles from work just because they didn't realize how expensive driving was, or they spend maybe $600 a month on groceries for just two people when just because they happen to like Whole Foods instead of Costco. And there's a bunch of little details, and if you start looking into it, and maybe they drive their car to the grocery store when they live only 2 miles away. So a bunch of small changes like this that are just $10 at a time can end up becoming tens of thousands of dollars, and pretty soon you're on a forward-going treadmill instead of a backwards one. So that situation doesn't sound as dull to me, as dim to me as it does on the surface. Once
now, people who may doubt this, you actually have a forum on MrMoneyMustache.com, and people can actually post their situation, and both you and other readers will actually help people to figure out where they can find savings to try to get on the forward treadmill. Is that right?
Yeah, it works really well. If you just break down your budget and just say where you're spending money, then people will pipe in and say, well, did you know that you don't have to spend $200 a month on a cell phone, or you don't have to have a $17,000 car when you're in debt. Stuff like that. Yeah, it's all numbers.
Let's talk about my cable TV and internet, because I read your blog post about, listen, if you get rid of cable TV and internet, which a lot of people pay $100, $110, $120 a month, if you think about that annualized over 10 years, you're talking about something like $12,000, $13,000 if my math is correct, something like that. Now, working in media myself, and have it working in video, I definitely need a fast internet connection at home. And I also need to be able to monitor what's going on in the news, because we're doing a news show here. So how can I reduce my cable and internet bill, which, as you say, it's like $123 every single month. I looked it up today.
Yeah, well, that's kind of a silly question because you're David Pakman, so you're in media, so that's a tool. That's like me, Mr. Money Mustache. I have to have a computer and internet access if I want to do this job. And I also have a carpentry business on the side, and I don't complain about the fact that I have to own a nice table saw and stuff.
Okay,
So
okay. So I shouldn't feel bad about it
tools versus
necessarily.
toys. Yeah. On the other hand, if that person that you'd asked me about a minute ago with the $40,000 income has a cable TV package, then they gotta have a serious talk with Mr. Money Mustache because what are you doing sitting watching TV if you're in debt? I mean, there's way better stuff you can do with your time. I mean, the world is so full of fun and useful stuff you can do that TV should just be, well, with the exception of watching shows like yourself, it should be way down at the bottom of your time prioritization.
I agree. I agree with you.
As a benefit, it saves you a ton of money too. But I think the time's even more important with TV. Our time is so precious. I don't want to see another commercial in my life, and I've gone years without seeing one because I love my precious days of the moment or moments of the day.
All right, last thing I want to touch on is there's some counter blogs, personal finance blogs, which don't really like your strategies, right? They say, listen, the Mr. Money Mustache strategy of trimming 30 cents off of your gas bill and saving $8 here and there, it will save you money when you aggregate it over the long run, but it's going to negatively affect your happiness if you're constantly worrying about every single penny. That's not the way. How do you respond to those critics?
Yeah, well, first of all, I think that's people who are still addicted to spending. If you just watch a lot of TV and ads, it's easy to get addicted to spending. And some people actually think that not having a big TV or not having a luxurious car will actually make them less happy, and that's actually pure crap. The more you do for yourself, and the more you figure out your own problems, the happier you get. So consumer spending, no connection with happiness at all. Like it takes a while to program yourself to realize that. Once you do, then you're free. Now you can choose your spending consciously and you're not denying yourself anything. That's the point number one. Number two is a lot of those bloggers aren't even retired. They're still working for a living, telling me who's been retired for 8 years and I have a similar material lifestyle to them. I have this nice house and I have cars and bikes and everything. And it really is. It comes down to the numbers. It's not 30 cents or $3. It's a savings rate. If you can save 50% of your take-home pay, you're ready to retire in 17 years of work if you start from zero. And if you save more, then your career can be even shorter. So I think people are mistakenly thinking $3 lattes are nothing. But really what I'm talking about is change your whole lifestyle. All your spending falls away, except the important stuff like what really takes to be happy, like living in a comfortable place and having food. And you really do end up rich. You just got to do the numbers.
All right, we've been speaking with Pete, also known as Mr. Money Mustache. The website is mrmoneymustache.com. I have a great time every time I have a free 15, 20 minutes. I'll read a few of your blogs. It really is great. So thanks so much for coming on, and I hope the audience checks out your website.
All right, thanks a lot.
The David Pakman Show at davidpakman.com. Welcome back to the David Pakman Show.
Every Friday, we like to answer some of your questions. You can submit them via email, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, wherever really, or via our voicemail number, which is 219-2DavidP. Here's one question that came in via voicemail.
Hey, David, it's Andrew. I just had one question. I was wondering if you could ever see yourself doing a half marathon or maybe a marathon or anything like that, or if you ever ran 5Ks or anything like that, because I know you played soccer. I remember you talking about that sometimes, so I wasn't sure if you ever run at all. So just wondering because I'm a runner. So yeah.
All right, good question. I have done a handful of 5Ks. I honestly have no interest in doing a half marathon or a marathon. Marathon 26.2 miles, half marathon is 13.1. 5K is about it for me. I think that my interest would be in improving my 5K time, but I just don't have much of an interest in running 13 miles at a time. And also increasingly, I'm reading, Lewis, that significant amounts of long distance running is not particularly good for the joints, and the amount you would have to run to train for a half marathon or marathon is a lot of miles week in and week out. And I don't know that that's appealing to me.
Yeah, not just your joints. You could be doing damage to your heart too. I have no desire to. I've done a couple 5Ks, two of them, and only because David twisted my arm. I did not want to do them. I
But it
didn't
was
want to
an
do.
enjoyable thing. I liked it.
Okay, it's not enjoyable for me, but that's because I am competitive. And yeah, I could have taken it easy and done it, and it would have been fine. But I'm competitive. I wanted to get a good time, and so I pushed it, and it's not pleasant. And I have, I can't say I'll never do a 5K again. I guarantee you I'll never do anything more than a 5K.
I could see if it was the perfect scenario, if I was in a place where I was doing 5Ks and improving my time and really feeling good, where if there was a 10K that was going to be good weather, not too hot or too cold, and I had time to train for it, and it was, a particular cause that was interesting to me, where I could maybe see trying to train up to a 10K, maybe even only training up to like 8K, and then just saying I'll run the extra 2 kilometers on the day of, maybe. But I really just have never. A lot of people I talk to say that it's so appealing to them to try to figure out if they can do a half marathon, but I've never had that kind of curiosity.
No, I have no desire to do that. It sounds terrible. I like to run. I usually go for between 1 and 2 miles, and I leave it at that. I'm not going to mess up my joints. It's not worth it.
Lately, I've been doing 2-mile runs a couple times a week and then just increasing my speed each time during the winter on a treadmill. In the summer, it's kind of harder to figure out exactly what your speed is, but I don't necessarily feel the need even to regularly run more than the 2 miles.
Yeah, neither do I. And doing it at a fast pace is fine, but I try to enjoy it, and I'm not going to enjoy anything more than over 2 miles.
Angie wrote in saying, are there any ways culturally or in any other way in which you wish America was more like your home country of Argentina? Very interesting question. Most of the things are cultural and they're little differences. And a lot of it has to do just with the general, I'll give you some examples. A lot of it can be seen through food culture. In the US, with the exception of bigger cities, like in New York, you don't really get this as much. But in the US, there's this culture of, at restaurants, wait staff rushing you through your meal, clearing plates before everybody's even done with that course, constantly asking what else you need and bringing the check and blah, 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 blah. The way that it is in Argentina, and in most of the rest of the Western world, to be perfectly honest, more laid back. You ask for the check when you're ready. The plates aren't cleared until everyone has finished that course. That to me is way more appealing, Lewis. And it's very jarring actually when I go back to Western Massachusetts, which is much more like this kind of rushy feel compared to New York. It's actually quite jarring.
It's funny that the rushy feel is happening in sleepy Western Mass instead of New York City. But yeah, there's different food culture there. I have not lived in a different country. So, I can't really, I don't really have this, nothing to compare for me. But I have lived in Texas and in Florida and in Massachusetts. And, I think Austin is similar to New York in some ways when it comes to the food industry and the restaurants there. Less of a feeling of, less of that rushy feeling, as you put it. But, cultural differences across different countries, I can't speak to that.
The other thing that I've noticed is in the US, particularly again in more urban areas, as I'm familiar with, even when it comes to meeting friends, there's more of this rigidly scheduled time, including an end time. Like, for example, I know a lot of people who, when they're meeting up with someone, they'll say, okay, we're going to get together for drinks from 6 to 7:30, right? And I understand people are busy and sometimes you need to schedule an end time. And I'm a big advocate of, with meetings, there's so much time lost with meetings in American work culture that I favor scheduling it tightly with a specific end time and a specific agenda to reduce wasted time. But that's another difference from Europe and from Argentina, certainly, about, hey, if you're getting together with friends, we don't have to agree now what time we're done. We just kind of hang out until we don't want to hang out anymore.
Yep, that's the best way to do it, really. Unless, of course, like you said, I don't know, maybe you're renting some room or, excuse me,
Lewis has a frog in his throat today. Must be from that dry airplane air or something.
Yeah, I don't know. The airplane air is bad, very dry. But I've been to places here in Austin where, of course, you have no choice. You know, you go somewhere, you make reservations, you're there for 2 hours. There's that type of thing. But yeah, of course, I prefer the most laid back scenario in any situation. That's just my style.
All right, Carla wrote in, why doesn't McDonald's sell hot dogs? You know, I've never considered this. Famously, I have not been to a McDonald's at this point for, I think, 16 years or maybe even longer. I don't really know that much of what goes on at McDonald's, but it is interesting. You would think a place that sells burgers and fast food and fries and blah, 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 why wouldn't they sell hot dogs?
Have they ever had any pork products? Yes. Well, the McRib, right? So
yes, it was a pork-based thing. It had some pork in it, I guess.
They at least claimed it was somewhat pork or related to pork in some way. That is a good question. I know they've tried pizza. They had the McRib. Why not hot dogs?
I did a little research and found that at one point there was a McDonald's hot dog. I don't even know if it was available everywhere. I think it was called the McHot Dog, and Ray Kroc wrote about it, the CEO, in his 1977 autobiography. And there was something about selling hot dogs at McDonald's that just was not working for them. I honestly have no idea why.
So that might have been at a time where the hot dog might have been made from actual meat, and maybe the burgers were still being made from mostly meat at that time too. Different time. Maybe it would work better now.
Conflicting reports say that Tokyo McDonald's still sell hot dogs. It's called the McHot Space Dog.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, I know that there are, different McDonald's in different countries do things that are not done here. Of course, like we've discussed, I refuse to go to a McDonald's. I don't want to eat anything from there.
If you had to, though, what would you eat at a McDonald's?
Well, I'd probably get one of those salads or maybe one of those yogurt things. Do they have that? I don't even know.
Most of the places have yogurt. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I'd get something like that. I think the last time I had the traditional fast food, as we call it here, it made me sick. I mean, it's not food, and I can't eat it anymore.
Wow. So, Lewis, you're taking a big stand on this. And what falls under this? So, give me yes, no's. McDonald's is a no. Burger King?
No.
Wendy's?
No.
Subway?
If I have to, I'll have Subway. Yes.
Arby's?
No.
Okay. What about the more regional places like In-N-Out Burger or Jack in the Box?
No.
All right. Well, there you go. You've heard from Lewis. Carla, we don't know why McDonald's doesn't sell hot dogs worldwide, but apparently they're selling them in Tokyo. Who knows why? And I wonder how it's going there. On today's bonus show, great stories. Eyeball injections for night vision, sales tax exemptions for yachts in New York, and food documentaries and shows on food culture in the U.S. We will talk about that and much more. DavidPakman.com/membership. You should not miss today's bonus show. It's going to be a good one.
The David Pakman Show at DavidPakman.com.